So I think that there's is the presentation still going to be projected? I don't know. This presentation that I have in my hand is going to be projected, I think, behind. So if you ladies want to move to the side, you can stay up here, it's fine. I don't know how it's going to work. So I have it in my hand, but because I didn't see what it was going to look like on the projector, I have a printout just in case. Oh, I was going to ask. Sorry. Oui, oui, ça va. There you go. If you just press the red button and then it will be filming. Okay, so I don't think I need this, which is a good thing. So I'm the founder of TG Foundation, a UK registered charitable trust. I started raising awareness about rape as a weapon of war in the Democratic Republic of Congo in 2008. So it's been going on for a long time now, so 16 years. We registered in 2010, and we help grassroots projects. We help to fund grassroots projects who are helping, we did start with grassroots projects who are helping victims of sexual violence, and we've helped dozens of women, but then we moved across when we thought the war was ending to helping the war orphans. So at the moment we've been partnering with an orphanage that's on the ground. We're very passionate about, supporting organizations that are already on the ground. We don't really believe in a bit like Dambisa Moyo's book about how, aid is kind of dead. We don't really believe in this model of, Western charities going into Africa and creating programs. We think that, Africans are very capable of knowing what Africans need. So we're very passionate about grassroots anywhere, but specifically in Congo. So we work with an orphanage who up until recently, up until January 2024, had 125 war orphans. Yes, all of their mothers and fathers, most of them were killed in front of the children's eyes. Some of the children, their mothers would have been victims of rape, whether they're mass rapes or rape by one soldier or rebel. So yeah, these children are probably, without any exaggeration, the most, I think the Congolese in the northeast of Congo, without a shadow of a doubt, are the most vulnerable demographic of human beings on the planet. So, these children probably are at the top of the list of being the most vulnerable, some of the most vulnerable children in the world. That list sadly seems to be growing, but that's another topic. So, rape and sexual violence is used pervasively in the war in Congo with Rwanda. And we, as I've said, we provide the grassroots organizations who provide the healthcare, socioeconomic programs for women who are victims of sexual violence, but mainly now it's been war orphans. So we do everything from providing IT equipment for the kids to learn how to use laptops, computers, their school fees, so education programs, food programs, sanitation programs. So we recently, in the orphanage, when we started working with them, they didn't have any running water. At the time, they only had about 100 war orphans, and they didn't have running water for 100 children. Could you imagine? Most people can't cope these days with having 1 or 2 or 3 children. Could you imagine looking after 100 children with no running water? So we were like, okay, the first thing that needs to happen is that you need to have running water in the charity. So we fitted, thank God now, I look back on it, we fitted the first running water tap outside of the orphanage. And since the war started in February 2024 this year, which was a huge shock to us, we were not expecting that, we've had an influx of, I think, the statistics will come up soon, but I think it's actually, is the TG Foundation presentation up? But there's been an influx of, I don't think it's up there, there's been an influx of 557 refugees. So we've gone from supporting 125 war orphans to almost 700 people. The majority of those 557 refugees, I think over 400 of them are children. So if we hadn't had fitted that tap, we would now be facing a situation where we've got almost 700 people, the majority being children, in the orphanage with no running water. So literally, when I say to you that every penny, every pound, every dollar, every cent, every euro counts, it really, really does. To give you a little bit of a background about how we work, so we're a volunteer-based organisation. Myself and my mother are trustees. We do have advisors and patrons, but we volunteer completely. For the last 16 years, we've been a volunteer-based organisation. So I can safely say that like 99.5% of funds go to the grassroots projects. You know, I always like to say, for now, we do a lot with a little. So, you know, when I talk to you about fitting taps in the orphanage and feeding 125 war orphans, it really is working on very small budgets. But, you know, I think the Congolese people and the diaspora as a whole are very used to, unfortunately, the African communities as a whole are very used to working with a very little. We're quite passionate about changing that this year and, you know, having bigger budgets, because just to give you an idea of figures, you know, it's $1 a day to provide people with one meal a day. So I think we've got approximately 682 people who need help, refugees and war orphans combined. So that's like basically, to round up off the figure, $700 a day just to make sure everyone gets one meal. So, you know, that's like a lot of money. I think it might be $3,000 a week, if not more than $3,000 a week. So yeah, every penny that you give really counts. I did have a presentation. Okay, yeah, there's a section on the presentation that talks about the mineral wealth of Congo, so I'm just waiting for that to go up. But essentially, you know, there are lots of major mining interests in the DRC, so, you know, for all intents and purposes, the DRC statistically on paper, in terms of its natural resources, is the wealthiest country in the world. So I think when we're looking at the statistics of having, you know, 7 million internally displaced people, an estimated 12.5 million women who've been raped over the last 30 years, if we look at the mineral wealth and the wealth that mineral wealth contributes to the Western economy, particularly, then the situation in Congo really, it doesn't really make any sense, because essentially, really, a country like Congo that has so much natural resources and so much natural wealth should really be the beacon of Africa, and at the moment it's far from being the beacon of Africa. So, you know, it's a very difficult situation for us. Like, you know, everyone's dancing, everyone's enjoying this evening, and these fundraisers are always challenging because we want to keep the mood up and we don't want to bring it down. But the reality of the situation for the Congolese diaspora and the Congolese on the ground who care about what's going on in Congo is that the situation is extremely harrowing. You know, I've been supporting the Congo for 16 years, and every single year for those 16 years, I've been listening to testimonies of babies being raped, 2-year-old girls being raped, 80-year-old women being raped by 5, 10, 15, 20 men. I mean, one of the worst stories, which I think was published in the Sunday Times about 13 or 14 years ago, when the Rwandan M23s invaded Goma in the northeast of the Congo was that a woman was gang raped, I don't know by how many men, when she was fleeing the war from Goma. And not only did they gang rape her, but then they poured petrol on her and burnt her alive. So, you know, if you want to think about going to watch a horror film, don't watch a horror film. Read a UN Security Council report that gives testimonies of rape. Read an article that gives a testimony of rape, because literally what a horror film will depict, and I'm not a horror film watcher, but, you know, I've read what The Clockwork Orange is about, for example. It's The Clockwork Orange in Congo and worse, you know. So we really are talking about people living under horrific circumstances. So the organizations like the orphanage that we support, really they are the heartbeat of the war zone, and they are working with, when I say shoestring resources, they're really working with virtually nothing. So it's $1 a day for a meal, which is 80p a day. So, you know, there are about 30 people in this room. So just everyone giving £1 tonight would mean that 30 people. And the reality is that we're really stretching those budgets. So we may be getting a week's worth of funding and making it last for a month or two. So, you know, whatever pound you give really does go a long way. On the tables, there are leaflets, TG Foundation leaflets. You have the QR code that opens up straight into our Just Giving page. I know many of you have already donated to Pid'or's birthday fund, so obviously every penny from that fund will be going towards the emergency appeal that we've launched for the DRC. For those of you who haven't given, who want to give, no amount, little, great, is too much or too little. Every penny counts. I wanted to talk a little bit about the coltan and the cobalt in the DRC. So I have the figures here, actually. We're having some technical issues, but I do think that it's quite important to you know, go over this just to finish off. And I think what's important about talking about the wealth of Congo and the wealth of Africa is because we could have a very different Congo, we could have a very different Africa. And I think, in my mind, if a UK, Canadian or American or Chinese mine is still operational as I speak in the northeastern Congo, if there are expatriates who are on 60, 70, 80, 90, $100,000 or pounds or more working in those mines, and they're based in Congo, in their villas, with their drivers taking them to the mine every day, if that can still be operational in the northern DRC, then if the West can make the mines work in this war, then they can help us to stop this war. You know, it's no longer good enough to kind of shrug this off as like an African problem. As Pid'or said in her poem, this is not an African problem, because every single individual here, whether you're of African origin, whether you're of Western origin, British origin, it doesn't matter. You all have a piece of Congo on you because you have a mobile phone. So the days where we can like detach, the days where we can detach what we're going through from what's going on in another part of the world have long gone, because it's not the truth, you know. So yeah, going back to, if we can just cut through to, obviously you can see the statistics here. So yeah, $682 would buy a meal a day. These are actually the women who've arrived at the orphanage. This isn't like a Getty image or something. These are real women. They had businesses, they had land, they had husbands. Their husbands are not at that orphanage, so God knows where they are. I don't know if they've been killed. I don't know. I have no idea what's happened to the men. So, but you can see from these women's faces, obviously they're very distressed. So I think in any situation, you know, we have to put ourselves in the other person's shoes. If you all of a sudden had a group of military men come in here, kill all the men by shooting them in the head, or half of the men by shooting, like now. This is what's happening in Congo now. Imagine that happening now. We're just standing here having an event, and then a group of military men just come in, unidentified. They're not army, they're not British soldiers, they're just military, come in here, shoot men in the head, and start raping all the women in front of the men. And then just take all your stuff, take all your belongings, shoot some more men, torture some women after they've been raped, and then just leave. And then tell you have 10 minutes to clear out, or everyone in here is going to burn to death because we're going to burn the place down. This is what's happening in Congo on a mass scale, because as you can see from these figures, over the last 30-year war, 7 million people have been displaced. So, you have to put yourself in other people's shoes. They lose everything in the blink of an eye because they can't go back to their land, they can't go back to their businesses, they can't go back to their homes. The women watch their husbands being killed in front of them in the most horrific ways and just end up having to go wherever they can go, some orphanage, and then not knowing. And these women are, in a lot of senses, have landed in a better situation, because you do not want to end up in an internally displaced camp if you're female. You are going to get raped, you're going to get killed, your daughters are going to get kidnapped in the night. Actually ending up at the orphanage that we support, because it's in the center of town, that's actually probably the safest space, even though they all just have tents outside in the orphanage. They're not in the orphanage, but these women actually have probably landed in the best situation they could in a terrible situation. So to go back to here I just wanted to go over some of the statistics. The DRC is the 4th largest producer of diamonds in the world, not Rwanda. In 2022, the DR Congo's diamond production amounted to some 10 million carats. I'm not a big diamond buyer, but I should imagine that's a lot. Employed in electric cars and renewable energy technology, we have coltan. So think Tesla, Elon Musk, billionaire on his way to being a trillionaire, thanks to Congo. Congo is a mineral resource that you can find in DRC. Artisanal miners produced 2,174 tons of coltan in 2017. 59% originated from North Kivu and 24% from Tanganyika. All of these, Tanganyika is in the northeast of the Congo. Again, generating a huge amount, 34 million. I think that's probably a very low figure, actually. And this is the cause of Congo's war. And often it's very frustrating to read these very, quite honestly, stupid titles in the Western media, like, Congo's wealth is its curse. It's not its curse. The curse of the Congo is that the West is supporting Rwanda, providing it with military equipment to occupy the Congo. So the curse of the West of Congo is how the West, with the help of Rwanda, is exploiting the Congo. The wealth of the Congo, it's not its curse. The Congolese welcome the capital markets into the Congo. What we don't welcome is mass rape of our women, occupation of our land, mines that operate to steal these minerals so that they can come back and sell them here at huge profits. That's something that we don't support. So most of the raw mineral deposits remain untapped. So this is very important. And I think, again, this 24 trillion is an underestimate. If I was to say what I think the real amount of the untapped wealth of the natural resources in Congo are probably near, I would say, 250 trillion. 24 is too low. If we're saying that we're going to see the first trillionaire by 2030, then obviously if one man can become worth 1 trillion, saying Congo's untapped resources is only worth 24 trillion is a huge underestimate. I have to wrap up, so if you could go to the next slide, I'm going to try and be really quick. So cobalt, again, you know, cobalt is used in all of our electronics products, our iPhone. 70% of the global cobalt mines are in Congo. So obviously, you know, we see these poor child miners there. So yeah, so I think we've all got the message, you know, we really need your help and support. We've now gone from 125 people to 700, so it's very overwhelming when you're a small charity, but with your help, more of these people can have access to the food, health and sanitation that they need. This is our QR code. It's on the leaflets on the tables. Please, you know, if you haven't already donated, please make a donation. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you want me to at the end of the event. Thank you very much. And thank you to Pid'or for supporting TG Foundation. Thank you.
We'll leave these slides up. Sorry, that was an issue on my part. Sorry, Guy, I'm just going to jump in your spot. We're going to take a brief rest break.